And so what was his site missing from an organic search perspective or a click-through rate perspective, and hence a ranking?
And just to make a quick point, his site looked nice.
It did.
If you looked at it visually, you said, oh, that's a nice
I was
website.
slightly
That's
discouraged when I looked at it.
Because you thought it was going to be good on the back end.
Until I really went in and looked really well at it.
Yeah.
And so,
Nolan had me look at it, and I evaluated it, and I look at it, and he had no semantic markup, which is the first step of properly labeling and structuring your data.
So Google trusts it.
So
right?
Google trusts it and knows what they're looking at. And second, he had no schema whatsoever.
Right.
Not his business name, not his logo, not his address, not his phone number. The most basic stuff was missing from that.
And it was pretty junky content overall. It wasn't horrible. He had a fancy design structure with some pricing in there that most companies in that type of business don't have. But what was interesting about it is that this particular company was in a broad range but specialized in a niche. Hey there guys, it's Nolan and Jason here, and we're going to talk about how to improve your click-through rates for your small business website. And I guess just to define this a little bit, when we talk about improving click-through rates, we're talking, this is going to be an organic search engine optimization, SEO.
Right.
So click-through rates not necessarily on a paid ad, but on your organic ads, and maybe even we can even talk about that. We should talk about the knowledge graph and the GMB homepage.
Yeah, we should. Because obviously if the site is optimizing well to a point that your Google homepage and your knowledge graph for GMB has the information they want, they may not go to your website. Yeah. But all of that was dependent on
let's tie it in here at the end, because it'll make sense. So I'll let you start up, because I think schema is always a good place to start up. And we just before this started, we just looked at a website that had a good example of it.
Yeah.
So what is this markup, and why would someone click through? For one thing, guys, just before Jason goes into it, because he's the authority on schema over me for sure. You're talking about the ability for more people to click on the website and it's obviously the importance is kind of obvious, but it also actually helps your organic rankings.
Right.
And so why would schema markup help somebody on a mobile search or desktop search click on their ad over somebody else? Like, why would it?
Well, just real briefly, I know we've talked about it before, but just to briefly cover it, schema is, I like to call it the code within a code. It's a fancy word for labeling your data and structuring your data on the site. It's code that you put in so that you tell Google that certain bits of data and parts of your site are supposed to indicate certain things about your business. And it can be really simple stuff like, this is definitively your address, and this is definitively your phone number, and this is your logo, and stuff like that. And there's thousands of points of data that you can structure with this stuff. But that just gives you an idea.
Because I'll do a better job of explaining the practicality of that.
Yeah.
So you care about it because it's what Google uses to parcel data, and if you don't have it, then they're going to defer to someone else that has this. And not only that, from this click-through rate perspective that we're talking about, not only are they going to just favor the other person that allows them to parcel more data, but the other sites are actually going to move up in rankings because they get more clicks, hence the click-through rate.
Right.
And so what are some examples of how schema helps showcase a site on?
Well, the big number one is, of course, aggregate star weighting for reviews.
Right.
If you have reviews, whether those, whatever source they come from, and you properly schema and structure the data on those reviews, you can have an aggregate star rating, which obviously is like your average rating across all your reviews. And if you have schema done properly on that, you've probably looked at it yourself, you've seen a search result, and you've seen those stars right there in the search, right there on the search page, down in the organic rankings. Some people have them, some people don't. Well, the people that have them are the ones that have schema, and the people that don't are the ones that don't. Right. And that grabs the eye. It doesn't just draw the eye, because every other thing on that page is a blue link and black text, blue link, black text, and all of a sudden, yellow stars. And it draws the eye, and it tells the user, the customer, potential customer, oh, these guys have a 4.5, and these guys have a 5.
Safe place to go.
Yeah, this I should check this out because these are a trusted source. So that's your first one, and that one's kind of a no-brainer. You should be doing that, and if you're not,
Right.
you
And
need
we were
to.
just talking about actually my brother who we do business for.
Yeah.
And his pictures in there, presumably because we marked it up with schema.
Yeah, and that's another cool thing is you've probably looked at search results and you've seen little thumbnail pictures get pulled in down in the organic search results, and sometimes Google will pull that in, but if they pull it in just on their own,
Right.
you don't know what you're going to get. They'll just grab whatever picture on that page.
And just for the record, they don't like that because they don't know for sure
what it is.
What it is.
Yeah, they would much prefer you tell them.
I'll give you an example of this because I answer questions for Google on retail locations that I go to.
Yeah.
And they'll say, hey, do you know this place? Does this picture represent them better? Or does this picture represent them better? And so no one's gone into the Google account and really defined that as much. And even in the Google account, there's so many photos potentially. They want an unbiased opinion about what's the better picture.
Yeah, exactly.
And they're not marked up in like a schema language on that GMB Google My Business account. So they're asking for clarity so they can trust it better.
Right.
Yeah.
On your website, you can use schema to say, this is my business logo, and this is an image of my business. You can actually, within your
Right.
local business schemas, there's two schema points, one's logo, one's image.
Right.
And the image is supposed to be like your storefront, if you've got one, or your office, and
Right.
the other one's your logo, and they'll show those things.
Yeah, they'll show way more photos if you actually mark all the stuff up properly. I'd like to kind of dive off. You remember you just did a site evaluation before we walked in here?
Right.
So somebody, and this is an interesting thing because and we're happy to have a client like this, but it's an interesting point to pick up. We got a call from a guy that said, I want pay-per-click services only, which we do AdWords management. We're a Google AdWords partner. So I said, fine, would you like to talk about doing search engine optimization and work on your website? He said, no, I want this only. And so at the time, I didn't look it up.
Yeah.
And when I went back and looked at it, and so what was his site missing from an organic search perspective or a click-through rate perspective, and hence a ranking?
And just to make a quick point, his site looked nice.
It did.
If you looked at it visually, you said, oh, that's a nice
I was
website.
slightly
That's a
discouraged when I looked at it.
Because you thought it was going to be good on the back end.
Until I really went in and looked really well at it.
Yeah.
And so, yeah.
Nolan had me look at it, and I evaluated it, and I looked at it, and he had no semantic markup, which is the first step of properly labeling and structuring your data.
So Google trusts it.
So
Right.
Google trusts
Yeah.
it and knows what they're looking at. And the second, he had no schema whatsoever.
Right.
Not his business name, not his logo, not his address, not his phone number. The most basic stuff was missing from that.
And it was pretty junky content overall. It wasn't horrible. He had a fancy design structure with some pricing in there that most companies in that type of business don't have. But what was interesting about it is that this particular company was in a broad range but specialized in a niche.
Right.
And so it was vitally important that all the keywords that they have were as high as possible. And what's interesting about looking at it,
A very competitive niche,
very,
by the
very
way.
competitive
Extremely
niche.
competitive.
Well, we can talk about it. It's okay. I mean, this particular client was a plumber going for a water heater
Yeah.
only.
And for those of you that aren't plumbers, water heater installation and repair is like
It's coveted.
It's the brass ring.
Yeah, it's
That's
for
what they
some
want.
of them, it's what they want.
That's their primary thing.
And he was in a primary market in California. And so here's the point of the whole deal. I was looking at it and I'm like, gosh, he's got some top 10 rankings, but guys, your number one ranking gets 38% of the clicks, number 2 gets 16, number 3 gets 8. And when you're going into this minutia click-through ratings, click-through rate is really also, when we're going to talk about GMB homepage and what that means is an overall, I think it's a health rating of how well the site does.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And so he's spending money, which is fine. We'd like to help him on ad spend, but we know for sure that lead cost way more money.
Yeah.
And
we could get him better return for his dollar by optimizing.
I mean, Jason,
his
we're
organic.
talking like 400 to 500% better return.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so the money he's going to spend, which is really nothing considering it's a pay-per-click spend because you can spend so much there.
Yeah.
That money spend, which was very little there, would turbocharge his deal and push all of his rankings that much higher because he had no pictures showing up.
Right.
He had no semantic markup. Aggregate star rating.
Yeah. And incidentally, he had visible on his site, pictured in a really nice looking, pretty little slider.
It looked
He
good.
had a ton of reviews.
Yeah.
And they didn't matter because
Right.
they weren't schemaed properly so they weren't going through to the search result page.
Yeah, which and all of this stuff that we're talking about affects his overall GMB homepage, which we'll define in a moment. But so the something else that one of the writers wanted us to talk about here that helps us with these is the featured snippets, and so as far as a click-through rate and also site links. So I guess, can you discuss it, Lee? How about site links first? That more lines up with what we were talking about.
Site links, you've probably seen sites where you're looking through the search results and you've got somebody's come up and then there's like a row of links under that showing you other pages within that that site that you can go to for more information.
Right.
And that's, again, that has to do with a combination of schema and content.
And when they're there, it just looks fancier. And I want to say something else. So if you had your regular old listing, it's like this. But if you add site links and pictures and stuff, it gets...
Yeah, you go site links, pictures,
it gets like
aggregate
that.
Star rating, and all that.
I don't know if y'all can see our fingers, but you're like double the amount of space for free. So all this schema, coding, attention to site links, pictures, aggregate star rating, all this stuff is basically free, extra organic traffic, right?
Provided that you're giving Google that information in a format they like, they will give you that shelf space.
They give it to you for no charge,
right.
And so it's absolutely ludicrous not to go for it. And again, just an example, I didn't actually call that guy today. And the reason I didn't call him today is because it hasn't started yet. And I know that for me to, I told you before, we say on here, I utilize organic, I utilize paid advertising on Google and paid on Facebook and Instagram.
Right.
And even
everything.
Even some YouTube. Yeah, we do podcasts. We really hit all the channels. I know for sure, beyond a shadow of a doubt, though, that some return better than others.
Right.
And even though I'm not suggesting that he discontinue paid ads, I know what his sentiment will be. And one of the reasons I know it about him is because he called and rolled over some of the other services that are better return. So I know he's not quite thinking straight on his marketing return.
Right.
And I know based upon the amount of money he wanted to spend on the pay-per-click campaign that he's expecting more than what he's willing to give.
He's going to get.
Right.
And given the niche he's going for, that's one of the most expensive.
It's very expensive, and I know that he's going to expect more than he's willing to give. And I don't know. I know it's a little rude to say it that way, but that's the truth of the matter. And so what he needs, but it doesn't mean that he can't get something great for what he's willing to give.
Yeah.
He just attributed it in the slightly wrong order.
He doesn't yet understand.
Yeah, I'm not even going to say he did it to
where the best place to put his money is.
I'm not going to dog where he spent it.
Yeah.
I'm just going to say for the amount of money he's willing to spend, he misappropriated it.
Right.
And so I need him to have that sink in a little bit before I make a phone call to him about the other portion of the services, because he was so adamant that I didn't want to deny him. Yeah. You know, if he wanted to do that and that's what he wanted us to do, fine. But this sort of stuff is exactly what he badly needs.
Right.
And maybe I should even send him a clip of this video.
And and the thing is, he probably paid a lot of money for that website, and he's proud of it.
He has pride.
It looks nice. It looks nice, and he, like I said, he paid a lot of money for it, and so he assumes that means it's good.
I have another one that I want to do, another podcast, and it's not inappropriate, I don't think, but it reminds me of how clients see their website and how we see it, or how Google sees it.
Right.
And that's a great topic,
that
right?
That is a good topic.
And so it's like I compare, like you look at your website with beer goggles on, and the algorithm is at closing time when the lights come on. Right? It's good, right? Yeah. Anyway,
accurate.
Yeah. So very accurate. That's basically what a client sees, because this guy probably did spend a lot on that, but he needs to have all this done. And one other thing I want to talk about the click-through rate is that it actually moves the search rankings up. So as it gets clicked on more and the click-through rate goes up, this actually happens on paid ads as well.
Right.
But as the click-through rate goes up, your actual organic rankings go up.
Yeah.
And so
Google sees people clicking on that, and they said, "Oh, that's what people want to see for this keyword,"
right.
And they move you up.
Sure. Yeah. So you actually move up as a result of all of it. It just all kind of compounds on top of each other. So as all this culminates into this really great information that gets pulled, then you end up having this overall better web presence. And when things are pulled up about you, even that looks better. Like Jason was talking earlier about the logo and naming this stuff. Well, some of this stuff they feel uncomfortable or don't even know what to pull if your knowledge graph pulls up. So if somebody goes in and types in your name on Google and then types in your name, and maybe depending on the name of the company, they might have to type in the city or the word reviews or the word complaints. But they're generally looking for you. And the website itself still plays like a massive integral part, but they don't necessarily go to the About Us page anymore. They trust what the entire web's saying about you.
Right.
And then that's called your GMB or Google My Business homepage, is that screen that pops up when somebody types in your name and your city. And then all of that stuff starts to look better as you improved your click-through rate, because you parceled all this data for Google and they're able to pull in your Yelp account and your logo and reviews and star ratings and all this stuff.
All of a sudden you'll see a search results page where all 10 organic results are about you, even if they're not your website.
Yeah.
And then you've got like you said, the knowledge graph on the right with all your information, pictures, and all that kind of stuff.
It's healthy. It's indicative of a healthy website. If that looks great, then you're probably getting pretty good organic results already. They may be able to be higher, but they're better. And if you look at a competitor's that's newer or doesn't work on any of this stuff, they might only have 2 or 3 things at the top about them. They might even have some bad reviews on a certain one. I get clients calling me and they'll say, oh, well, I've got bad reviews on this platform, but they're great on this platform, Or I'll actually look it up and I only have good reviews on 1 platform or 2, and they have bad reviews on 3 or 4. And what's bad about it, sometimes it is only 1 review.
Yeah.
It could be
but
fixed.
Google will still show it.
Yeah, and they'll show it, and then it looks bad as a whole. And I really think your GMB homepage, which is an industry term for really your homepage on Google, how it looks when people search you, also that click-through rate needs to be considered as well.
Yeah, because we're seeing a lot more that people will pull you up and they'll see your GMB homepage and all this information out about you, and they'll sort of do an at-a-glance scan and say good enough and click the phone number.
Yeah.
But that is, all of that is dependent on your overall web presence, and it's founded on the health of your website.
Yeah. And just for the record, guys, everybody acts like this is too hard to do. We do this for a living, and this is all optimizable things that a professional digital marketing agency like us does for you. Right. So it's not easy, but it's easy, right? You just got to call us and have us do it. It's easy for us. It's hard for you. It's stuff that we do. There's some things you can do better, but tons of stuff you need us for in order to get all these little details done so that all your click-through rates and everything else sinks in well. This is a testament to high-end code-based quality work, tons of details, and then Google being able to read it and see these signals around the web. And then it all dances and sings like it's supposed to, and you get way more clicks and impressions and calls that cost much less than having to pay for everything.
Right.
And by the way, just for the record, you work on your brand. One thing, the GMB homepage is indicative of if it looks good, of a great brand.
A healthy brand.
A healthy brand that's worked on well from a digital standpoint. The brand's healthy.
Right.
And which brings you more business, which is why we do it. So
that's why we're here.
Yep. I'm good with that one. You good with that?
I think we covered it.
Call us.
Take it easy.
Bye.